Everyone, my project explores concert camping, the ritual of waiting in line for hours or even days to secure a spot at a general admission concert. And specifically, I look through the lens of fangirl culture, analyzing how traditions act as a rite of passage, a performance of identity, and ultimately a form of religious pilgrimage for this folk group. Alright, so let's get into it. So, my project is based on my interviews with Bridget, who is a 21-year-old self-identified fangirl, who also happens to be my sister. Bridget supports a number of individuals, such as the musical artists Harry Styles, the Jonas Brothers, and Role Model, but she doesn't just consider herself a fangirl for those individuals. Rather, she's a part of an overarching fangirl culture that isn't limited to just one person. And she's not only an experienced camper, doing it multiple times in America and Europe, but she's also a tradition bearer who is knowledgeable enough about the tradition to pass it on to others. So first, we gotta understand, what is a fangirl from the emic perspective? And so Bridget's words will enlighten us. She says that a fangirl is someone who, open quote, follows someone and supports them in all their endeavors, close quote. So this following requires active investment. It's not just like listening to somebody on Spotify or watching their movies. It's buying their merch, going to shows, engaging with all their interviews and their media, and really building them up as a person. It also values, because you're not engaging with you're engaging with them as a person, it values person over product. Unlike a standard music fan, a fangirl supports the artist as a person, watching all their stuff, following their life updates. And Bridget even says that if she finds out somebody she supports is a bad person, she'll stop supporting them, even if she likes their art. So, in choosing somebody to support, Bridget defines attraction as an important hook for fangirls. A lot of fangirls are first exposed to people through social media and online fan edits, and a lot of the people they're exposed to, these artists and these actors, they possess a quality of beauty, as Bridget puts it, that you don't find in everyday life, and that makes it really easy to idolize them. A counterexample she gave to this is actually Ed Sheeran, who is undeniably a talented and popular musician, but she says he doesn't have like that specific fangirl following that people like, say, Harry Styles have, because he doesn't fit the visual archetype that sparks this specific type of fangirl devotion. Because he's not like that conventionally attractive. No offense to Ed Sheeran. So, one of the most or the best known tradition of fangirls is something called camping, which is where they get tickets for a concert and then arrive at the venue as early as days before the concert starts to secure their spot in line. And they basically sit there pretty much all day. Sometimes they get blankets and stuff. They talk to other fans. They read. They make bracelets and like merch, self-made merch. And they basically just engage with the event that is the concert. And why do this? One might wonder. The goal, Bridget says, is proximity. Every fangirl at a concert wants to be in the barricade, which is the closest row of the artist, to be as close to the artist as possible. So now that we know... this may sound incredibly chaotic, this whole tradition, and it sounds like a lot of work, but Bridget says it's actually governed by a strict, unspoken code that is adhered to by the fangirls. There are unspoken laws like if you try to cut, you're publicly shamed, and the same happens if you like leave your spot in line for a really long time. And there's also something called a Sharpie numbering system, which is an honorary system that fans use to maintain order, because a lot of the times concert venues won't acknowledge the fan ordering of the camping. So if you're like the third person in line, for example, the line leader has the responsibility to write a 3 on your hand. Then you can leave and go to the bathroom, then come back and keep your spot. Now, how do fangirls learn all these rules? Bridget says it's through observation mainly, and she would know because not only has she been numbered, she's been the line leader before in Germany and had the responsibility of numbering and thus passing on the knowledge of the tradition. Now that we've established everything about the tradition, it's time to analyze the folkloric function of this tradition. So, I argue that camping, like all traditions, helps fangirls to perform their identity. By engaging in this war of attrition for the barricade, they signal to the world and to other fans how much of a member they are of this culture and their devotion to the artist. And furthermore, Bridget says that one of the most important parts of camping is wearing special outfits that fit the aesthetic of the person performing. And we all know, we learned through the Shukla text, how small choices in dress that are across the triviality barrier both consciously and subconsciously enable the performance of identity. And on the right, there is an example. Harry Styles, one of his albums was like a big hippie aesthetic, and so a lot of the fangirls dressed in that style and did these elaborate outfits that they wouldn't really wear in every day. In addition to this, in addition to being a performance, camping also serves as an event that helps fangirls escape the monotony of life and functions as a prop for hanging out. Bridget says that if she's having like a long week with work or school, the promise of a big concert in the future gives her something to look forward to. And fangirl and culture in general, in addition to camping, allows them to engage with the present moment and gives them a culture in which they can process the zeitgeist and participate in the current obsession in real time. And that helps build like a feeling of community. And one of the main ways this occurs is like fan edits and online forums like Twitter. On the left, that's Jeremy Allen White, who's often the subject of fan edits. Now, all this discussion of camping might stoke familiar connections for many, because there's actually a lot in common between the way fangirl and religious devotion functions. In both, you see believers take a pilgrimage to the location of whatever it is they elevate, whether it's a god or a person, engage in ascetic devotion in an attempt to get as close as possible, participate in shared rituals like waving lights and singing songs that can contribute to an overwhelming sensation of surrendering yourself to the collective experience that a lot of people feel very emotionally strong about. And then ultimately, of course, both revolve around a godlike figure that is idolized by the participants. But for Bridget, getting close to this godlike figure at a concert doesn't elevate their godlike status, rather it releases the illusion. She says that when you're up close, you see them sweat. You see them sweat, and you see hair on their arms and lines on their face, and you realize they're not a god. They're human just like you. And that's something she finds very rewarding, that realization. In addition to this release, there's also a parallel release that fangirls experience by being isolated from society and only surrounded by other fangirls in the barricade that share their level of devotion. Because everybody shares the same culture there, nobody will judge them, and they can give into their devotion fully, which they find very freeing. And it's understandable that this release of societal obligation would be a draw, because the Edic perspective often is very condescending to the fangirl culture. A lot of people from the outside dismiss fangirls as crazy and only focus on the attraction element, but Bridget explains this isn't the case at all. In fact, it's a supportive community that is centered on building people up. As she says, there's a lot of love to give in the community. And she points out, why does society dismiss this form of support, but when sports fans do the same thing with like tailgates, that's completely normalized? That would suggest possibly that there is a gendered element to this dismissal. Ultimately, Bridget does what many other marginalized cultures do. They reclaim the word used to dismiss them, and because of that, fangirls refer to themselves proudly as fangirls. And that's it. Thank you.